Hello, sword dude and dudettes. We're back with yet another micro sword review for the holiday season. So we'll be reviewing a couple different makers this time, and we're going to start with one of my favorite katana. Is this even a katana? It's rather big. It's maybe an O katana or like flirting with the odachi size. This is a sword that was made through Swordis. And it's produced by Hanbon Forge, one of the forges that they work with in order to produce custom swords, using the katana customizer that they have on their website. And of course, since it was made following my specifications, I really like it. This one is really, really neat. It's a very long blade and it has unusual cross section. So I wanted to see exactly what Hanbon Forge would be able to produce if I just kind of threw everything at them, and they executed quite nicely. So this is a mid-range sword as far as price is concerned, and everything that they were able to execute came out without really any complaints from me. The fittings, the Fujikashira, the way that the Suba has the nice gold and silver executed on it, even the ribbed saya that we have here all look really, really pretty. The Hishigami that's inside of the Itamaki, making sure that it stays all in position, is really good. If we pull it out, it's been freezing here, so unfortunately, it's probably stuck in the scabbard. This is not the sword's fault. 1 minute. And again, no fault of the sword, just because I'm keeping it in near freezing conditions here. As it comes out, you'll see that we have an unusual blade cross section. So this is almost sharp on both sides. It's Shobu Zakuri cross section. So rather than going to a thick mune on the backside like the traditional Shinogi Zakuri, this tapers to a point on the back. So it's almost like a European sword or a Aegean, where it's got not quite a diamond cross section on both sides. And again, as I pointed out, this is quite a big blade, but because of that, it loses a lot of mass here. It thins out towards the end. So even though it's quite long, it doesn't feel very cumbersome at all. And I have put this through its paces. I have hit a lot of stuff. I've whacked really heavy bamboo, etc. And even so, let's take a look to see if it's lost any of its luster. Not at all. This is still a fierce cutting blade, even after me bashing all sorts of targets in the background. I really don't have any complaints. If there's one complaint I have at all, this is blackened brass, and even when it came in, some of the blackening was wearing out along the borders of the Suba, so I could see it was a little gold on the edges. But otherwise, it was spectacular. So this is an endorsement for me, not only of Hanbon, but also of Swordis and the Katana Builder. Obviously, I'm going to have to do a dedicated video talking about how we went through everything, the entire process to me. But right now, I'd say that, yeah, this shows that it works exceedingly well. I have one video on the other sword that came in from my friend, who basically went through the same process, and once again, the sword came out looking spectacular. So two votes for the mid-range Hanbon Custom Katana. Also from Swordis, and also from Hanbon, we have a very different sword. Now, this one's very interesting. You can see that it's much shorter and has a very different color. So what is this? This is a Aegean, not just any Aegean, but this is a replica of a very famous one of the kings of Yue, the sword of Gojian. This is one of the most famous swords from China's history, from the Warring States period. So this is a Bronze Age sword from around the 4th century BC. Now, this is kind of interesting because even though this is a budget sword, and we don't see very many bronze swords on the market at all, and I personally like this sword a whole lot, with all those caveats, I am not going to endorse this sword in the same way that I endorse the other sword from Hanbon. Why is that? Well, this is not actually really a practical sword for use. This is a sword that gets a lot of the aesthetics right. Like if I were trying to recreate a replica of the sword of Gojian for under $300, This hits a lot of the notes correctly. There are a couple of choices that I would change in the hilt and the way that the disc pommel is done, but on the whole, I can recognize this right away. And again, you don't see things done in bronze very often at all. But from a dynamic standpoint, this isn't done correctly. This is made more like a sculpture and less like an actual sword. This comes in at 1.1 kilograms. So this is well over 2.5 pounds in weight. And for a sword this short, that is massive. This comes in and is just a big, thick brick of a sword, which is not how the originals were. Again, it looks wonderful, and you can still learn some things about the sword and its design and how it's shaped. You can see how it starts off rather wide, and then it kind of pinches and tapers before going to a point. You can tell about the special type of cross-section that was used. You can see about the sockets here that were intended for very fancy types of colored stone that would be inset in it. So there are still things we can learn about the sword from this replica. And if you're interested in that, then by all means pick it up. But if you're interested in a sword that you're going to learn about the Bronze period from China and how they operated, this isn't, unfortunately, this will not teach you about that. So I would say pass on this particular one as far as replicas of bronze swords are concerned. Now, if we want to talk about bronze replicas, take a look at this. This is a beautiful replica of a bronze sword from the Aegean. So this is a Greek sword from the roughly 15th century BC, and it was produced by blade maker Neil Burridge in England. And even though this is a custom piece, he has a couple of models that he reproduces with regularity. So I'd say this is almost semi-custom. He is still producing swords, I will say, with a caveat. I will update the video as I get the correct information. This is a mid-range model of sword, and unlike the sword that we were just looking at, you can see that this is beautifully gracile, and while it does start rather thick, it tapers over its length, even while it has a piped spine in the middle to give it some stiffness, and very thin edges here to allow it not only to be stiff enough to deliver a stab, but also thin enough to be able to deliver cuts. It has this beautiful carved wooden plates and has a little gold band around it. This is exactly what you'd want in your replica of an actual Bronze Age sword. These are how swords were originally done, and obviously bronze swords come in a variety of different forms. Just like in the Steel Age, there's numerous types of models and designs, but even though they were short, they weren't overly heavy, and they oftentimes weren't particularly thick, and so they're quite maneuverable in the hand. This one locks in the hand very nicely. This is a G-type of sword, or a horn-hilted sword that we have here. This is beautiful, and if you ever have the opportunity to get your hands on some of Mr. Burridge's work, I would encourage you to do so. This is no different. This is an easy endorsement from me. I haven't taken this particular one out cutting yet. It doesn't belong to me. It's on loan. But I have no doubt that if I wanted to sharpen up the edge briefly, it would go through light targets, no problem, showing that bronze technology was still quite good, even if it might not, quote unquote, have as long a lifespan, an operational lifespan, as a Steel Age technology. So that wraps it up from now. A couple of different types of swords than we're used to seeing, but they're still pretty cool. So I hope you found this interesting, and we'll be back on the channel next time for even more swords. Take care.